Well, the U.S. is trying to create a U.S. alliance for its advanced technology ecosystems, of course, starting with semiconductors, but also with essential vital minerals for the energy transformation, battery supply chains, mineral supply chains, strategic mineral supply chains, and the ability to produce essentially a zero carbon advanced infrastructure, also 5G or 6G. So the U.S. is trying to separate from China's high-end industries, both as a matter of U.S. industrial policy to promote U.S. industry, jobs, and politics, because in the U.S., protectionism against China is deemed by both political parties to be attractive politics because of the vote of the manufacturing sector base in the American Midwest, which is taken to be the swing vote in presidential elections. So both parties now compete on a protectionist line, protecting the jobs of American industry. I think the war in Ukraine has probably exacerbated this because now the U.S. also sees that the military base in the U.S. is actually not necessarily even competitive with Russia for a conventional war. So I think that there's a rethinking about American industry from the point of view of the armaments sector. Of course, that links to artificial intelligence, it links to the semiconductor sector, it links to the strategic mineral sector, and so forth. So in the U.S. mind, the U.S. is introducing a protectionist industrial policy and a strategic supply chain policy. And Chile will face that, but it's a question how it will face it. It may face it as American companies wanting to create supply chains with Chilean and more generally South American mining, for example, for lithium or for copper, for other resources. That would be fine. Chile will make more money. It will have an export market and so forth. The question is whether the U.S. leans so heavily on Chile to say, well, your supply chain is unacceptable because you have Chinese companies operating in it, and so it hurts our national security. That is a possible approach from the U.S. The language I would use, I cannot repeat over Zoom. If I were to hear such things, it would not be polite and should not be said, but I would reject that approach. Chile by itself will not be in a position to reject that approach necessarily, but it's really important for South America to reform a political union and an UNESUR that brings together Mercosur and the Andean countries is really important because actually South America needs a political base for geopolitical dialogue, and it doesn't have it right now. In my opinion, thanks God Bolsonaro is gone because he was playing the game of division. I also personally, just to show you how how at odds I am with the way the U.S. thinks right now, the U.S. strategists think. I think the U.S. attempt to bring down Maduro and to divide the continent between the pro-Maduro side and the anti-Maduro side was tremendously stupid, cynical, self-destructive, aimed mainly at the Florida electoral votes in the 2020 election more than anything else, and very bad for South America because it divided South America between the leftist regimes, the rightist regimes, and what South America needs is a unified strategy right now, both in geopolitics, in trade negotiations, in finance, and in the physical infrastructure connectivity. Because South America should be building an integrated zero carbon energy system that brings in Chile's photovoltaics, that brings in Brazil's hydropower, that brings in the Caribbean basin wind. This is great. This would be a terrific resource, but it requires regional cooperation. Put aside labels, put aside ideology, go make investments. And that's what I would recommend. And I don't want the US to meddle in that. And China may be a part of some of that supply chain. And I would say that's great. That's fine. China will help invest. They'll also bring technology, physical infrastructure. I like Huawei, for example. I'd say go build out a 5G system based on Huawei. That freaks out the US. They can't spy on you as well if you have Huawei. That's my interpretation. They say China's going to spy. I think the issue is the US won't be able to spy as effectively. So I think that they're real issues, but I hope that South America can become more politically proactive, integrated, negotiating, and basically saying we want good relations with all other regions. That would be my recommended policy.
Thank you, Professor Sachs. Well, that's a wishful thinking, that we will.
I know.
We have been trying for ages to organize ourselves, and none of the different projects has succeeded, except for the Pacific Alliance at one point. But it was more trade and not that politically oriented. But still, it was very successful for a while. But the changes of government switch made it. It has not died, but it's not surviving that as healthy as it was.
If I could say the importance of regional cooperation is really an order of magnitude higher than even a generation ago, and for two basic reasons. South America really needs to confront the giants now. You've got negotiations with the EU, you've got strategic issues with the US, you have strategic issues with China, you have strategic issues with India will be there soon. And so you cannot do this one country at a time. It's not possible. So that's one reason. And the second reason is we need continental scale infrastructure now for the power sector, for hydrogen, for other core infrastructure for protecting the Amazon basin. And so the logic of regional cooperation from a public goods point of view is also extremely important. So I hope that all politicians at that level could be very pragmatic and say, yes, we each have our own domestic politics, but we face the outside world really in a structurally similar way. And we all have to work together on our infrastructure that links the region together.
Yeah, it's true. Professor, if Margaret can ask you one question and then we will let you go, but only.
Of course.
Please, thank you so much.
Thank you for the time, and I'll be very quick. I just wonder what you think. Obviously, the national security establishment in the U.S. has fundamental in shaping and crafting and advancing a certain, China policy, and wide-ranging and shaping other foreign policy as well. But I wonder what you think of this, these arguments that we hear among the private sector that, which are of, two minds about this. There is a considerable interest, obviously, in continuing to engage with China, a huge market, especially for certain types of industries, right? And a real need to engage there, frankly. But on the other hand, a sense that they are unable to compete in the region, depending obviously on what industry we're talking about, and and a real effort on the part of certain industries to promote policy, legislation that will be supportive again, of their interests. So industrial policy, as you mentioned. I'm thinking of the CHIPS Act, for example. So, I mean, what do you think of this argument? Do you see validity in this argument that there is an impossibility, frankly, to compete with China given the structure of that economy and the way that China engages with the region, unless these policies are adopted?
Yeah, I think first, we really should be in an ongoing negotiation with China on many different issues. And these issues are not simple. And China has a different structure of public policy and politics that is real, valid, rather successful, and requires us to work on rules of the road together with China. So I don't want to oversimplify. I think in general, China's rise over the last 40 years was done the real way through hard work and large-scale investment. The scale of China's saving, physical investment, building core infrastructure, smart planning, massive upscaling of science and technology and education levels is the core of what has happened, not cheating or stealing intellectual property and so forth. But China has a semi-planned economy, very smart, and it definitely raises issues that we should be negotiating. I'm so naive that I believe in the World Trade Organization even. I think we should have global negotiations over industrial policy and so forth. I don't want to give up on WTO, but we don't even mention it basically anymore. So I don't want to deny that there are issues and that they're complex. I don't think that they're a basis for unilateralism, a basis for containment, a basis for hostility, or a basis for war. So I would like to put that in perspective. Second, the interests of major US companies is quite varied. I spoke with one of our major tech companies last week. I won't put them on the spot to say which one. But really one of the companies at the center of all discussion right now. They were aghast at US policymaking. I asked them questions. Why is the Commerce Department doing X, Y, and Z? And their top lawyer said to me, Jeff, if we only knew. They don't talk to us. It makes no sense. We try to tell them this. They're going to kill our major market in China. Do they have any idea what they're doing? And it was quite impressive, by the way. This was a big, major company. And what they were telling me was not what you would expect to hear. I don't think it was a political thing. It was an exasperation with the US Commerce Department. He said they don't have a clue. They don't understand. How do we, I don't want to give away more than I should, but he said, we succeed by innovation. How do we innovate? We invest a fortune in R&D. How do we invest a fortune in R&D? We make a lot of money. How do we make a lot of money? We sell to China, thank you. So they're going to break our whole model by putting on these restrictions when they think that this is somehow good for us. It's the opposite of what we need. Our model is stay one step ahead through smart R&D, not through protectionism. And so it was interesting for me. I reached out to them to try to understand their position on these issues, and I got an earful that was completely consistent with what I naively believed before talking to them. That's an example of one, but it's one of the companies absolutely at the center of current discussion right now, and they were completely exasperated. They were not thinking the U.S. was representing them at all. They thought they're thinking the U.S. is going to kill their major market, stupidly, for no reason, and that the U.S. authorities had no idea how they really have kept ahead of the game. That's interesting.
Yeah, it seems that there is a disconnection on both sides, no, and it's very unfortunate. And
by the way, there are two parts of America one I don't really understand, but I kind of understand it. The other part I understand better, but there is a real security state, which I'm not in the room, God forbid, but it's a crazy kind of thinking from my point of view. And I don't feel they're making me any safer. I've been through too many US wars now in my lifetime to believe these people, even though they're generals, okay? With all respect, I don't believe them. Then there's the part I know something about, which is economic policy. And they are not on top of the game. I'm sorry. There's a lot of naivete and a lot of dusting off the Soviet Union playbook as if China's the same thing. And it seems to me to be an anachronism of about 40 years.
Wow. That is major statement, and we hope that this gap shortens soon enough before more harm is made. And countries like ours are very dependent on what's going on in the big players. So for us, that's why we're having this webinar actually right now. We're very concerned of what could be the effects in our economy, in our trade, and it's not easy. And it's not easy where we're located. You mentioned that the need to organize ourselves in South America or Latin America, and that's also very difficult given the governments that we have right now. It's very complicated.
Yeah. One thing to remember that I think is useful is Brazil will have the G20 presidency next year. This is a real opportunity for the region to get together also. I happen to be a big fan of President Lula, and I was just watching him at work in Paris last week at the Finance Summit. I think Brazil can really play a constructive role internationally as one of the BRICS and within South America as a constructive, really constructive, smart, unifying force. I know because of all the politics, everyone's on different sides, but there's an opportunity here that should not be missed.